Hey guys, it's Trisha, the left-handed stitcher. I'm getting ready to make another Stitchy tracker, and since I promised to do a tutorial, that's what we're going to do today. So just a quick little overview of my tracker. The cover is made using scrapbook paper adhered to a more sturdy cardstock. This is just your standard 110 cardstock. I get it from Walmart. And then the pages are printed on slightly less weight paper. It's less than cardstock, but more than your average printer paper. What I used for them is this stuff. Just 60-pound paper. I couldn't get this locally, so I had to order it online, but again, I live in the boondocks. And it worked perfectly for this. It just has a good feel to it and a good body, so perfect. And then the book itself is bound with the sewing method that Pam Reed showed in her Fedori tutorial. I'll put a link for that so you can take a look at that. That's a great tutorial. Now, to get started, the first thing that I do is I print off my pages. Now, this instructions for this whole process, as well as links to the files for the pages, are in a blog post on my blog. I will put a link to that blog post in the description, so you can get a hold of that. Now, let's see if I can bring this up a little bit higher. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to do one 12-month and two 13 months. So I can show you both versions, because obviously the difference between odd and even, there's a slight difference in the types of pages that you print out. And so I'll make one and I'll make two of those. I'm going to use this one as my 2018 Stitchy tracker and one of these for my 2019. So I've decided that I like the idea of using a 13-month calendar. Go from January to January. That way, when I get to the end of a year, I'm not trying to carve out time in December to make my next tracker. I'll have January of the next year to start, using, and then when I get around to making my next tracker sometime in January, when I've got more free time, I'll just transcribe what I've already put into last year's tracker for that January. So I like that idea, and that's what I'm going to start going to. But I'll already have next year's made, so I can make a 12-month for this year and have my 13th month one going for next year. Alright, so I'll hold it real close so you can see that, and then I'll show you the pages I printed. For 13-month one, you'll print a single-sided full page on one sheet, and this is how you build your stack. Is that goes down first, and then 6 double-sided full on both sides and flipped. You need to flip it on the short side. If you flip it on the long side, it'll mess with the orientation of it, so make sure you do a flip on the short side. And then when I build my stack, I orientate the top of the page to the left, so I make sure they're all orientated in the same way. So I'll just make sure they're all in line there, and that's how I build the 13-month stack. The 12-month stack is a little different. The first page that you print, it will be single-sided, bottom only. So that goes on on the bottom, and I'll orientate it in the right way. The next one is a two-sided, but the front side is a full page and the back side is top only. So put that on the stack, and then 5 more double-sided full flipped. So that goes on top there, and that's the stack for the 12-month journal. Alright, so then once I have all my pages printed, I will decide on some scrapbook paper that I want to use. So this year I've chosen to do one in this pretty distressed purple brocade, and then this one is a green with some blue highlights in it. Viney, lacy kind of look. This one, the camera doesn't pick up the depth that it has. It's so pretty. And then I picked this one, kind of a magenta pink and shiny. So last year, in order to adhere my piece of cardstock to the scrapbook paper, I used my double-sided scrapbooking tape. So I just covered the page on one side with all of this tape. And if you just bear with me for a minute, I will get all of these protective pieces of paper stripped off. You can use anything that you want. You can use normal double stick tape. You can use glue stick. Whatever you have, whatever you're comfortable using. Just something that's going to give you good coverage and get a good bond. So, alright, now what I do is I place it towards the top. I don't have to get it flush because I'm going to trim off that. So here we go, and press it down to make sure it's got a good seal. And then what I do is I trim flush with the top, I trim flush with the sides. You can trim your bottom flush if that's what you want, but I decided last year that I'll leave the bottom on, score it right there, and then I flip it up to make the pocket on the inside. So now the one thing that I changed for this year, I decided to give it a try. Instead of using the double-sided tape, for the other two I used this stuff. It's just a tacky spray. I sprayed the piece of paper, the cardstock, and I laid it on. Now I didn't pay close enough attention to the corners on this, so before I use this to make one, I'm gonna stick a little dab of glue in there to make sure that it's nice and stuck down. So I did that one. And the one thing I want to mention is that when you put your paper down on the back of your scrapbook paper, pay attention to orientation. If your paper has an orientation, make sure you have it in the way that you want it. Now, I made mine so that the cover is landscape or portrait, but the pages on the inside are landscape, except for, when I make notes, I use it still. And you can, if that that bothers you, that it's this way and then this way, you can orientate your paper so that it flows that way, But this doesn't bother me. I can do it either way. But I just wanted to mention that in case it made a difference for you. All right, so these are ready, except for I gotta redo these little corners. But I'll do that off screen. So the next thing I need to do is to prep these, and to save time I'm going to do it off screen, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Alright, so I've trimmed off the top and down the sides. I used my scoring tool, and I just scored it right along the bottom edge of the cardstock. That way when I ease it over, it's a nice pretty fold. I didn't do that last year, and as you can see I got some cracking. So I learned my lesson. Make sure you score that fold before you fold it over. Run a little strip of double-sided tape along the sides, and then just fold it up and press it down, and voila, you have a pocket. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this bad boy is my scoring board to score down the center of my covers and all of the pages that go inside as well. So I'll come back once I have all that done. Actually, I changed my mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the first one. So 11 inches across, halfway is going to be 5.5 inches, and I want to use my smaller, ball on the tool because it's a thicker paper. If it's a thinner paper, you use the bigger one, because the smaller one tends to break through on thinner paper, but this is thick. So I just put my tool right at 5.5. I butt it up in the corner, put it at 5.5, and I draw it down. So in here I lift up and get that center, and on this part I'm going to push pretty hard. I think what I might do is get it back in there and run this just a little bit underneath. Alright, so there's that, and then when you fold it, we'll do it slow and ease it. So once you have it folded, use your bone folder to reinforce that fold. And when I first make these things, it's gonna kind of sit open for a while until I really work it. After a while, it becomes more, just flat. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'll do all the pages and then I'll come back. Alright, well, I wanted to show you on the next one something that I learned just, like a few minutes ago. I'm continuously learning and improving processes. So instead of scoring it after I fold it up, I'm going to score it before I fold it up, because one thing I had happened, because I didn't score all the way down, this little corner right here started to crack a little bit. So learn as I go. So what I'll do is I'll score it at 5.5. Down to the very bottom of the page, and then I've already scored right up against there, so then I can ease it over and get a nice clean fold. So Yep, that did pretty good. Just a little bit of cracking, but that's, you know, just something that sometimes happens. I'm working with some thick paper, so it's going to behave a little bit differently than what I'm used to. Alright, so again, once I have it folded up, come back and now score the top part. Alright, so now I'll add my adhesive to the sides and fold it up to create my pockets. So let me finish that and I will come back. Alright, well, again, here's another thing that I learn as I go. The spray adhesive may not be the best idea, because as I was folding this over, the adhesive let go on this front part right here. So I think I will have to go back to using the double-sided tape for now. Maybe I'll find a better spray adhesive, one that's meant for paper. Who knows? I'll keep trying different things, but for right now, what I'll have to do is go in there with some of my scrapbooking glue, and I'll probably put a little bit of my double-sided tape along the edges just to really secure it. But yep, that's some of the things you run into when you try new things. Alright, again, I'll see you in a few minutes. Alright, well, here is yet another variation that I am trying. Because there is so much bulk to fit into the spine, instead of doing it straight down the center, I did it to 1/8 to either side of the center to create a kind of a spine like that. And instead of having the pocket in one piece, I just continued that line down and I cut that section out so that the pocket's not adding to the bulk of the spine. And as you can hear, when I move it, I can hear some of the adhesive giving way. So as I find spots that open up, I put a little piece of glue, spotted glue in there, and once it settles, it should be fine. Again, it's a process. I learn from what I do, and from now on I will probably just stick with using my double-sided tape. But there it is. I'll put adhesive on the sides of these and fold them up. Alright. Alright, so now I have my pages scored and folded, and reinforce your fold with the bone folder. And then I reassemble my stack, make sure everything's right. So here's my single-sided, top to the left, and then add all of the double-sideds the same way, top to the left. Make sure you got them in the right order, because when you're scoring and folding, sometimes you might get one turned around. Alright, so there we are. There's my sandwich, and this is how it works. Now, as it is right now, I would have this front page to make a title page or more lists of some sort, and this back page. If I want even more space to write something, I'll add yet another blank page to the very bottom of the sandwich, so then you have more space. You could, use a blank page, do whatever you want with. You could monkey around on Excel and build your own list of some sort, however you want. Like keeping track of stitch alongs that you do. The sky's the limit. Whatever you can dream up, you can build. So that's my sandwich. The next thing for me to do is to take my cover and I'll measure and mark the center, and then I'll measure out a couple inches on either side, and use my big old crocodile to punch the holes. And then I'll use this as a template. I take my stack and I'll binder clip them so that they stay aligned as I'm punching the holes. I'll use my cover as a template to mark little pencil marks. That way I can see when I'm using when I'm placing the punch, I'm getting in the right spot. Alright, so I'm going to go do that and then I will come back. Alright, so now that I have the holes punched in my cover and all the pages, this is an optional step. I like to have my corners rounded on these things because rounded corners just hold up a lot better than pointed ones. They show wear a lot less. So I'm going to go do that on all of these corners and I'll come back. Alright, so all my corners are rounded. I used my old style Stampin' Up! Corner rounder to do it. You can go and get a corner rounder from the scrapbooking section in just about any craft store. So I'm ready to assemble my book here. Now I'm going to use a some length of what I call my vintage DMC. This is the stuff that is not color fast. You can tell by the label. I have a bunch of it, and I don't use it for stitching, but I use it for a bunch of other things, including the binding of these books. Now, Pam Reed, I mentioned it before, she did a really good tutorial about this, so I'm not gonna make you watch me do it. Go check out hers, because hers is awesome. So I'm gonna get that done and I'll be back. Alright, so now the binding is done. I chose a coordinating thread because that's what I like to do. It's up to you what you choose. You can add, you know, some natural fibers or, you know, some beads, or dress it up however you want. I like to keep it simple, so that's what I do. Alright, so after editing my video and even going through the process of rendering it, I was watching it and I just kind of realized that it was kind of, you know, stupid of me to not show you, you know, doing the sewing on here, because really it didn't take me very long to do it. So that's what I'm going to show you now, and then I'll re-edit and re-render my video. So I've centered the first hole, and then I put the other two holes about 1.5 inches away. Pam does 5 holes. I just do 3. The biggest reason is my Stitchy tracker is not going to get as much abuse as her Fedora inserts, and her Fedora inserts get an elastic band, you know, stuck in them, so there is some stress that's put on the binding on hers. So, but I decided that 3 was enough for me. So what I've done is I've taken a length of a coordinating older floss, sorry, that I have a bucket of this stuff, so I found the closest match I could get to it, so that's not too bad. What do you say? Alright, so the thing that I do is I'm using actually like a knitter's darning needle for it, because you know, the holes are big enough that it can go through easily enough. So what I do is I go down through the center and I leave the loop showing, and then I go up through one hole. And before I do this, let me triple check that I'm in the right orientation, because I did it backwards earlier. Okay, so yep, I'm in the right orientation. So then I put the needle through that loop, and I grab it over here and I pull it tight. Right there. Alright. So next thing I do is the loop is holding it right here. I go down through this hole, and then I go back up through the middle, like so. Alright, and I pull it taut every time I do something, just to keep it snug. Now, what I do now is I run my needle underneath that length of thread, but I don't pull it all the way through. I again put my needle through the loop, and then I tighten that knot down towards the center. And just to be safe, I do it once more on the other side. Tighten it down real good. And just because I'm that kind of person who likes to be absolutely sure something stays, I do it a third time, one more time on the top, and then you just cinch that down real good. And you see that really does make a pretty small little knot right there, so it's not not gonna get in your way. And then I just trim it close to it. And there you go. This Stitchy tracker is now got its binding, and it's complete and ready to go. There we go. This is the right side up. All right. So I hope that was clear, and it's easy to follow. Just let me know if if I was unclear at all. And like I wanted to show you, I made this binding, this spine with some dimensions, so maybe it will sit a lot better. Who knows? They all eventually work themselves, flat with a little of encouragement, but I want to see how how well this works out. And I really do like the fact that I freed the pocket from the spine, so that it's not adding to that bulk. So there it is. There's tracker number 2, and I'll finish up my third tracker probably tomorrow. I need some time to get this extra bit spliced in to the video. All right. Now, as you can see, the design isn't perfect. The pages tend to stick out a little bit. If I were cutting pages down to a smaller size like Pam does for her fedoras, that wouldn't be a problem, but because I'm using an entire 8.5 by 11 for this big old grid, that's what it does. You can trim that down if you want. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually like it because it helps me page through to find, the page I want. Now what I'll do is I'll put this between a couple of books with some weights on top for a couple of days to help it lay nice and flat, and it'll be ready for me January 1st. Now what I'm gonna do, you may notice something a little different. I realized partway through I was using the wrong pages for this one. I was using the 13 month, instead of the 12 months. So I swapped the pages out so that you can see how this, you have an extra page here and an a blank page here, and then it starts with your months, and at the back you'll have a blank page in the back. My fingers got a little dusty, so my pages got smudgy. I live in a very dusty area, so that kind of stuff happens all the time. I've just had to learn to deal with it. Alright, so with the 13-month ones, I went ahead and I added another blank page to the bottom of the stack, so that gives me the same, extra blank pages, and even one more in the back too. So that's one change that I did for my 13-month one. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I know it wasn't the best one I've done. I'm kind of under a time crunch to get this in, since I do have to get up early tomorrow morning, go to work. But I got the gist of it out to you guys, so you can see just how these things come together. And one thing I'm going to add right now is, let's see, what I'll do right now is I will go through and I will add a little flag to the top of each one with the month name on it. I'll go through the whole book and do that, because I'm not prepared right now to do the decorating of it. I'll go back through on another day and do the decorating. Now, as you can see on this one, I chose to do the name across the top, and in some of the months I doodled. Certain months got more doodling and decoration than others. But as you you see that day marked right there? That's the day I went back to work. After 4 years of being a stay-at-home, I had an opportunity that was pretty awesome, so I took it, and now I am a full-time worker again. So as you can see, it really, my stitching really took a hit. But that's alright. As you can see, the only time I really get stitching done is Flosstube retreat there, and Albuquerque retreat there. But I still do stitch, and I like to keep track, because my memory is crap, so writing stuff down is nice. And I think I mentioned before, I added this at the bottom so that I can keep track each month of how many whips I started with, how many I started during the month, how many I finished, and what I ended with, and that helps me at the end of the year put together some good end of year stats, just to look back on it. Now, as you can see, a little bit more detail about the grid. I have days of the week and days of the month written there. So the days of the month are filled in except for the 31st, since some months don't have the 31st. And the days of the week, I go in, I write that in, because sometimes I might know what day of the week it is. I don't know what the date is, so that makes it easy for me to keep track. And then in the slots, they're alternately marked with a gray tint, just to help me go across so I'm not accidentally going up or down a line when I move across to do a mark. And then very lightly you can see the numbers. I numbered each one of these rows so that I can tell at a glance how many whips I have. I don't have to count. Now this grid right here has the ability to do 40 whips. I don't think I'll ever get to 40, but you just never know. You never know. I might get there. Alright, so as far as the decorating up here, you know, you can do like I do. You can do the name across the top and do doodles on the sides. You can Zentangle the whole thing. You can write the month over here and use the rest of this space for goals or stitch-alongs that are that month. You know, anything you want to do, it's completely up to you. This year I think I'm going to make use of, excuse me, some of my stamps that I have. I have quite a stock of rubber stamps from when I was doing a lot of paper crafting, so I think that it'll be nice to do little pictures like this, stamp them, and then I'll color them. So I think that'll be fun for another day when I feel creative. Alright, so that's it. I will go through and mark each one of these, and the reason I mark them with a flag is the very first prototype that I did, the one before this, I had drawn all the months out, and then when I got to the end I was short one, only to find out that two of the pages had kind of stuck together and then I had a blank one in between. So that's why it was my prototype. I was learning a lot and tweaking my Excel sheet to exactly how I wanted it. So this is what it looks like. Alright, so if you have any questions, please let me know. And as with all of my tutorials, I always remind people, this is just one way. This is the way I've chosen to do it for now. I might change my mind at a later date and do it differently. You can do it exactly like this. You can change it up however you want. Tweak it, do things differently. It's up to you. So this was just showing you one way of doing it to give you an idea of, you know, how it can be done. Alright, so that's it for now. We'll see you next time. Bye! Happy stitching!